Hi, hello, how's it going? It's Emily. And today we're going to be doing a Summerween vlog. So if you're not familiar with Summerween, it's basically a readathon hosted by Gabby. I'll leave the announcement video down below. And it's just a way to celebrate Halloween vibes in the summer to keep us going until fall actually arrives and we can get to the best reading season ever. And really, I'm just going to be focusing on thrillers. I just have a few thrillers on the list, and they happen to meet the prompts. And I'm actually realizing that I will need to address what the prompts actually are and what each book, which prompt each book meets in a different clip because I don't have the list in front of me. I apparently forgot to grab my phone and have it near me while filming, which is where I would have the list. But we are starting with best offer wins because I need to use my Spotify hours. Does anyone else plan their reading around Spotify hours? I will also mention I'm starting this a little bit late. It is currently the 6th. It took me a while. Like the holiday weekend was pretty busy, the 4th of July holiday weekend here in the US. For those of you who aren't in the US and didn't have a holiday weekend, it was a holiday weekend for us. And so it was busy anyway. We had people in town, whatever. It was fun. And I just finished Queen of Shadows on the 5th. And so I just wrapped up my most recent Sarah J. Maas reading vlog. And now I'm jumping into thrillers. And I need to use my Spotify hours, which is what I plan to do for this. And I will need to take a pause at some point during this as well. So we're just going to be on our own schedule, really, is what's happening. Because I also need to take a pause this is definitely not going to use all of my Spotify hours, and I want to read most of another book with the rest of the Spotify hours I'm going to have for the month, and then, read that book next and then get back to thrillers. So don't mind the timing of this. That is going to be a bit off, but I have started with best offer wins because I've heard so many great things about this one, and it takes place in the DC area, so that's always fun. And if you haven't watched my videos before and don't know, I'm in the Washington DC larger DMV area is what we call it, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And so, it's always fun to read a book set in the area. And this one is about just how hard it is to find a house and how quickly houses go. I mean, I imagine this, I haven't read the acknowledgments or anything at the end that might indicate what kind of personal experiences the author Marisa Kashino has had with the housing market here in DC. I have not personally attempted to buy a house. When I moved in with my boyfriend, he owns the place that we live, and so I haven't had to go through the process of trying to buy a house. But whenever we are able to move out of here and get more space, we're going to need to go through that. And so, I'm not sure what personal experiences this might be based on from, what the author has gone through, but we're following a couple. We're mostly in one person's head. We're in the woman's head. And so her name is Margot. And it has just been and it's first person. So again, we're in her head. And it's just always a lot of fun to be in the head of a character that's just a little unhinged. And you can tell right off the bat that there's going to be an escalation here. So we start off where they've gone through so many attempts at making an offer on houses. They, for each offer, are putting more than 6 figures above the asking price. Their budget is 1.3, and they're kind of going to the max of what they can do at 1.3. And they keep finding places, making 6 figures over asking, and still losing out with bidding wars and with a bunch of offers being made on a house, driving the price up, and just they're fed up. And she is desperate to move and is desperate to have a baby. That's part of why she wants to move, is they don't really have space in the current place that they are in to have a child. It's just not really reasonable. And so they've been trying, but they've kind of been holding off to some degree on, trying to plan out having a kid. They sold their last place and they moved into where they currently live for what they thought would be a very short-term period, until they just found a longer-term place to live and have a baby. And, something many people are probably doing. And, they found one house that's perfect, but of course there were, 19, 20 offers on it. They keep finding places that don't really meet what they want. Oh, I hope you can't hear the coffee machine. Anyway, they keep finding places that don't really meet their needs or aren't really for them, or, if it does work, they lose on bids. And this has happened, I think, almost a dozen times at this point, maybe more than a dozen times. And so she's at her wit's end, and her real estate agent has heard through some other people about one house that is potentially going to be going on the market soon. And, she's convinced that the only way that they can really have a chance at getting a house is to do an off-market deal. Like, they cannot let a house that they want go to market because they just know they're going to lose out. Like, there's just no other way that she can see to actually get a house because they've just lost out so many times. Feels like me trying to get a freaking job, you know what I mean? And they just keep losing, and they need to try to find something that's off market but about to be put on the market. And so the real estate agent tells them about something, and so we open up with them just driving by the house, which, I mean, reasonable enough. Like, they're just trying to at least see it from what they can see in the curb, get a sense of the vibe of the neighborhood, curb appeal, that kind of thing. And their agent had encouraged them, just go by, just take a quick look at the neighborhood, look at the house, see what you can see. And, hopefully we can get some more information soon. And so they go by the house, and it opens with her deciding that it would be totally fine to go into the backyard of this house, like into these people's private property, just to see what the backyards look like, because they also would like to get a dog, and they want to make sure that they have a backyard for this dog. And while she's in the backyard, she can see the kitchen from there, so she needs to take a better look at the kitchen to make sure that the kitchen would be up to standards, to kind of get a sense for how the house had been updated. And someone that lives there, when she is able to at least get enough of a warning to get back into the front yard, like towards the sidewalk, when she runs into one of the people who owns the house, and is able to kind of brush things off. And then, in the vein of trying to get a personal in with this couple, there had been mention of a yoga studio. And so she finds her way into a class at this yoga studio and makes sure that it's the one that they're going to, so that she can talk to them and kind of pretend like, oh, this is just another coincidental meeting at a yoga studio, even though she doesn't live in the area, but she's got all these excuses and lies ready to go. And so she starts to talk to them, or one of them who's at this yoga studio. They get coffee and are continuing to talk, kind of finagles her way into getting invited over, and, so that they can go see the house. And, she is just trying desperately to get an off-market deal on this house, but they want to sell. And so she's having tensions with her husband, because he is kind of the opinion that they shouldn't be crazy people about this, and that they, if it's not going to work and if they're going to take it to the market, that's what they're going to decide to do, and, we'll just keep looking, right? But she's obsessed. She cannot stop thinking about this house, to the point that it's affecting her job, and some things go on there that I, won't say much about. But, things go on at her job. She becomes obsessed with trying to figure out how she can get an off-market deal with this house and with these people. And so, there have been some challenges for her along the way trying to do this, and she just kind of amps up what she is willing to do one step at a time. And you can kind of see the progression, which has been kind of fun. Like, I think my favorite thing about thrillers like this is you can kind of see the progression from, okay, this is a little, you're acting a little unhinged here, to just full on, okay, this is crazy. It's so fun. It's, obviously just interesting to be in her head. Is interesting the right word? Whatever. It is a ride to be in her head. And in that sense, it kind of reminds me of Yellowface, of just the compulsively readable descent into, well, if you just take this one step farther, then this makes sense in the main character's head, and they just kind of keep going and going and going to, lies on top of lies to maintain their facade or to cover up things that they're doing. And you can just kind of see that progression. It's so much fun. So I'm having a grand time with this one, and it's kind of nice. I read a lot of fantasy recently, so it's nice to switch things up. I think by the time Summerween or Winterween come, it's usually a good time and a good signal to me to kind of switch things up and read some thrillers or read something with a slightly different just flavor and pace and just in a different genre. So definitely having a fun time there. Hopefully Matt and I don't have similar experiences whenever at some point in the future we are in attempts to buy a house around here and see how crazy it actually is for us. Hopefully it won't be this crazy, but Anyway, so that's it for the moment. I'm in the ballpark of halfway through, so I'm going to finish that one. Hopefully today. We'll see. The U.S. soccer game is later on, and we're going to go watch it. So we'll see how much time I have, but hopefully I can finish this today or very early tomorrow and then get started on either the next one or the next book that I need to read with my Spotify hours. We'll see how I'm feeling about which I want to do. But anyway, check in later. So checking in, I have finished Best Offer Wins, and this was so much fun. And I don't want to say much more. There's not really much more about the plot that I can say. Really, we're just focused here on her doing increasingly unhinged things to be able to get into this house. And so, I'm not going to say what those things are, because that's the fun of reading the book, is to find out what those things are. But there's really not much else going on. It's just about her just finding out information, trying to use said information to be able to get into the house, plotting, crafting what she's going to do next to, the next part of her plan. And if she has a setback, then, she's like, all right, how can I move forward from here, and what can I do now? And it's just, we're just in her head with all of these things getting increasingly unhinged, as I said, and her justifying those things each step along the way. And it's always just so interesting to be in a character's head where that's happening, and they're increasingly justifying just awful things for the sake of, their single-minded purpose of accomplishing that purpose. And yeah, it was a good example of that, and it was fun. I had a really great time and just could not stop thinking about what was going to happen next and what she was going to do. Which is exactly how I wanted to feel about this one. So, mission accomplished there. I will say, I actually would love for there to be another book following this and following the events of this from another character's perspective, of them reacting to everything that happened and getting increasingly unhinged, reacting to everything that happened in this one, I think that could be fun. Like, I think there's a potential setup. I mean, I have no idea if the author's actually working on that or has any interest in doing that, but I think it could be fun. And there's definitely an opening here for something that follows the events of this book. And that's all I'll say. But I think that could be fun. So I have actually finished another book. I just didn't feel like getting on camera the other day when I was reading this one. But I have finished Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. So let's talk about this one. I did really enjoy this one. So here we're following a kind of a cast of characters. We've got a few main folks. So we're following a couple of different timelines. So we're following a few years in the past and then present day as well. And we're following a character, a mom and her kids who, their father was recently kind of brutally murdered by being pushed in front of a train. I'm kind of imagining like metro, like a public transportation train. Anyway, I think that's what it was. But he was killed by being pushed in front of a train. So pretty horrific. And so they're kind of reeling from this. There's someone that used to work or like at one point had worked with or known their dad who reaches out and through circumstances kind of gets, entangled in their lives, starts dating the mom. But it's also very clear because we get his perspective, which is kind of fun. It's clear that he is currently married to someone else. And so we're seeing, him in the present day, dating this woman whose husband was relatively recently. I mean, there's been some time, but, whose husband was killed and that he is cheating on his wife to be with this woman. And we're also following kind of sometime in the past when he is first meeting this person who he's now cheating on, who is his wife. And it's very clear that the way he met her, or as he was meeting her and starting to date her, it was also a time where he was married to someone else and he was cheating on his wife at the time with the person who he ended up marrying and then cheating on her. So it's clear that this is very much part of a pattern of his. Very clear from early on that this is a pattern of him. And at first we're not entirely sure what else is involved, but it's clear that his marriages each time have started to crumble and that, he starts to lose interest in his partner, starts to lose love for his partner, starts spending time with other women, starting to date other women, and will just kind of ghost his wife, just not really respond to messages. It will lie about where he is and what he's doing. And so, at first we were thinking, okay, this is definitely part of a pattern of him cheating on a spouse and then leaving that spouse for someone else and then cheating on that spouse and leaving them for someone else. And but it also becomes increasingly clear as we're going on that he is not just lying in terms of where he is and what he's doing. He is very much lying about that, but he's also manipulating, gaslighting, might at one point seem to be the perfect guy, the perfect husband, but, will flip a switch and, get angry or, again, just disappear, not respond to messages and not say where he is, or if he is trying to say where he is, he's lying. And it's very clear manipulation that's going on. And then it becomes increasingly clear that he is not just emotionally manipulating them, he's also manipulating these women out of money. And so we're seeing these patterns and we're kind of jumping back to the, a little bit in the past when he was meeting, in who he's currently married to in the present day, Martha, and he's cheating on Martha with someone named Nina in the present day timeline. And so we're also following kind of Nina and her daughter Ash, and her daughter Ash, Nina's daughter Ash, is starting to ask some questions about this new guy who's come into her mom's life after their dad was killed. After their dad was killed. And, you know, she's starting to ask some questions. She's starting to see that some dots aren't connecting. She's starting to get hunches and suspicions, but he always has the perfect explanation or a reasonable explanation for this and that. But things are starting to little things are starting to pile up for her. And then again, we're jumping back to when he first met Martha and was cheating on his current wife at the time, Tara. And yeah, that's kind of the basic setup. And we see Ash start to put some things together, learn some information. She's going around with someone else, another person, another character, starting to go around to see what she can find out and trace back information, see if she can catch him in a lie. But it's very difficult to catch him in a lie because he always has some other explanation that might seem reasonable. And if it was just something that maybe a little red flag thing happened, you know, maybe every now and again, and was a tiny thing that could be explained away, you know, okay, but it's a lot of things, including the police coming by and saying that they have reports and CCTV footage of someone looking like him stalking women. And, you know, he's able to kind of weasel his way out of that. And, you know, it's just all piling up. And so we're following Ash's investigation to try to see who he is and what's going on and what his lies are, talking to some of these other characters. And the past timeline is kind of going forward to kind of meet up with the present day timeline. And, you know, we see what happens as Ash starts to get more information, and will she be able to actually finally convince her mother that she's right? You know, we'll see what happens when multiple dots are starting to be connected with multiple people. You know, that's what's going on here. And it was just very entertaining. And it was also very entertaining, kind of like with Best Opera Wins, kind of entertaining to, you know, repulsive, but entertaining to be in his head as well and see him justify this and justify that. And anyway, would recommend. It was fun. And honestly, kind of appreciate thrillers like this. And this is, I think, why fiction can be so important, because you might just dismiss this as, or, you know, thrillers as just fluff to read when you don't want to, you just need something entertaining and a popcorn read and something that you don't need to think about. But, and you know, there definitely are thrillers like that, but this one definitely just made me think about how important fiction can be, because reading something like this can help clue people in to the signs that exist or may exist for them, that they're being manipulated, that they're being, you know, messed with, that their partner is gaslighting them, and that, you know, there are red flags there. Books like this can help people recognize what those red flags are and maybe help start to question or put some dots together for maybe what's happening with them personally. And you start to ask some questions. I mean, fortunately, nothing like this has ever happened with me. And I have the most green light boyfriend ever who's the sweetest. But, you know, it can be important to have fiction that can help teach you some of those things. And maybe someone has read this and taken a look at their own life and said, that doesn't quite add up. Or, you know, if I'm being made to feel this certain way, maybe it's not me, maybe there's something else going on here, and this is part of an intentional effort to make me question things. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting. And same with romance too. I mean, a lot of people dismiss romance as just fluff and nothing, but romance has taught me a lot about what I want from a relationship, what I should expect from a partner, or what I want out of a relationship and out of a relationship with a partner. And it's taught me a lot about those things. And I don't know, fiction is great. Fiction is wonderful. And that's my TED Talk. Thanks for joining. So we're now on another Lisa Jewell, The Family Upstairs. And I actually am realizing that there's another book that she's written that follows this one. So this is actually, I think, a duology. I imagine this one still wraps up and is a story on its own, but it'll be interesting to see how this wraps up and what doors there are left open for another book set with these characters. It'll be interesting. Will I want to read it? I hope so. I hope this one is fun enough that I want to read the next one. I hope it's not a duology in the sense that we only get answers to things in the second book. I hope this does wrap up with a mystery and is can stand alone as a book on its own. I assume that that's the case. I would be highly surprised if that were not the case. So we're going to dive in. I don't remember what this one's about. I think our main character finds some letter that she's inherited an abandoned mansion. I always love an inheritance story. And then her life gets upended. She's on a collision course with other people and gets entangled with kind of the dark secrets of her family. Anyway, I love inheritance storylines and when inheritance gets messy. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens with this one. So yeah, that is the next one. I haven't started yet, so I will come back once I've actually started and have some initial thoughts. So let's quickly check in. I am in the ballpark of halfway through The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This one has been fun so far. We're following a few different perspectives. We're following a woman, a couple of present day perspectives, and then one perspective talking about the past. So we're following someone who has received a letter that says that she's inherited this old house. And so she's going to the house, and she finds out this is the house that she apparently was in when she was a baby, when her parents and someone else died by a suicide pact. And then the other two kids in the house, her brother and sister, nobody knows what happened to them, but she was there. She was an infant and in her crib, I think. And, she was fine, but everyone else in the house was either dead or they didn't know where they were. And so she's inherited this house. She's trying to figure out more clues about what's going on. We're following another perspective of someone who has financially had it rough. She's trying to do the best that she can and, take care of her two kids and, struggling and trying to figure out how to get out of her situation. And we're also following someone who's talking about what it was like back in that house back in the day in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in that ballpark. I could double check the dates, but it's somewhere around there. I think it's late 80s, early 90s. And so we're getting the perspective of one of the people in that house back in the day to kind of describe what was going on. And so we're getting little bits of what happened then as he's telling, and then also as she's putting some things together. The first half has been a little bit slower. We're starting to ramp up now. Some things have just happened recently. Things are really starting to ramp up. I feel like I was more engaged a bit more quickly into Don't Let Him In than this one so far. But as I said, things have just started to pick up. So I'm very excited to see what happens next. I feel like I'm in it now. So definitely interested to continue and see kind of how everything converges. I think Lisa Jewell, from the ones that I've read anyway, has a fun time with different timelines and different perspectives and having everything kind of come together, which is kind of fun. So having a good time. We'll continue going on with this one. We are about to head out, so I just needed to be quick and at least like check in while I'm still reading instead of just coming back after and be like, by the way, I read this. But all right, anyway, check in later. So here to wrap up this vlog. Also, don't mind the angle. I realize this is not great with the lighting behind me, but I'm currently over here watching the France-Spain semifinal game of the World Cup. I have that on in the background, so just bear with me. Anyway, I did finish The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. Had a really fun time with this one, and yeah, just enjoyed the mystery, enjoyed the characters, enjoyed what was going on here. This does wrap up, so you can read this as a standalone. I believe the second one still touches on this mystery, but does follow some other characters, if I'm not mistaken. I do plan to read that at some point. I'm not in a rush to read that by any means, and I think I'll still remember enough about what went on in this one to just read that at some point. But I had fun with this one. I think I enjoyed Don't Let Him In a little bit more, but had a lot of fun with that mystery. I then read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tantera, and I do mean listen because the audiobook on this one, would highly recommend that as the way to go for this one because it is so good. One, the narrators are fantastic. January Lavoie narrates the female perspectives or the female voices in the audiobook, and the male narrator is also really, really good. I'm blanking on his name, but January Lavoie is God tier narrator for me. She is fantastic. And there's also podcasting elements in here. So you're following a murder mystery and a murder mystery podcast. And so the male narrator is the host of the podcast. But the two narrators also narrate, as he's interviewing people for the podcast, he will narrate the, male interviewees and she will narrate the female interviewees for the podcast. And so you get both of them doing a wide variety of voices, and just the range and the talent that they have for just having different voices for all these different characters that are being interviewed is so good. And I knew January Lavoie could do this because she narrated the Diviner series, and that sounds like a full cast audiobook situation. That was kind of this one too. Like, it sounds like a full cast audiobook, but it is just the two of them. So fantastic audiobook, God tier audiobook. Cannot say enough good things about it. I also really enjoyed the mystery and the podcasting elements here. So we're following Lucy, and so I think it's 5 years before the story starts. She doesn't really remember what happened this night at all, but there was a night of a wedding of a friend of theirs, small town Texas. So, think small town vibes. And so she, at one point, is found with her friend Savvy's blood on her and a tree branch in her hand. Again, Savvy's blood all over this tree branch, and doesn't remember anything about what happened. So it is entirely possible that she killed her friend. It is possible. The police have tried to figure out what happened, weren't able to gather enough evidence to show that she actually did it or to show exactly what happened, and so she hasn't been arrested for this or anything. So she has moved to LA and is living her life in LA, and just to get away from her small town. But her grandmother is having her, I think it was her 80th birthday, something along those lines. She was having her birthday party. And so her grandmother invites her back to small town Texas to celebrate her birthday, which she reluctantly does. And then come to find out that her grandma has really brought her here to interact with and meet, hopefully get interviewed by this podcaster who, for the second season of his show, or his podcast, the podcast is called Listen for the Lie. So for the second season of this podcast, he is wanting to talk about the murder of Savvy and try to see what he can figure out. So he's talking to different people in this town, and eventually talking to Lucy as well, Lucy agrees to speak with him and is saying, look, if I did it, I mean, I have no memory of this, but if I did it, I feel like I should know. And if I'm not, then it would be great to get this cloud of suspicion out from under me. So one way or another, I want to know what happened, and hopefully it wasn't me. And so it was just kind of a fun tension of she didn't even know whether or not she did it and does want to find out. And the podcaster wants to find out what happens. And so they're kind of teaming up. But of course, there's always, in her mind, always the chance that she did do something to hurt her friend that ultimately led to her friend's death. And, what would happen to her if that's what was discovered. And so you're going through you're in first person in her head, and this book was really funny. I was laughing out loud multiple times throughout this. I thought it was really funny and just cleverly well written, and just a very dark, dry sense of humor. But I thought it was funny, and so I thought this was super entertaining from her perspective. And then you're also getting podcast episodes and uncovering certain things as you go along. And the episodes of the podcast are being released as he's there, so he's starting to release things kind of in almost real time, and kind of interviewing people and editing things as he's there. And so there'll definitely be moments where, the cast of characters here are listening to the podcast, and then as he reveals some secret in this small town, you're getting the reactions of, other people in this town as they're interacting with our main character, Lucy. Anyway, super fun, super engaging. Again, would highly recommend the audiobook. It was a grand time. I don't really know if there's much more beyond the setup that I would be able to say anyway. So is it really, I probably would have said literally the same things if I had checked in halfway, and then at the end probably would have been like, yep, still had a fun time. So I don't know if it was that different not being able to check in partway through. But anyway, I think if I were to rank these, I would probably put The Family Upstairs at the bottom, although still did enjoy. Don't Let Him In, still definitely enjoyed. Best Offer Wins, and then Listen to the Lie was probably my favorite. Oh, and as far as what prompts these, Matt, let me get that up real quick, because I never actually spoke about what prompts these were supposed to meet. Come on, there we go. So let's see here. So the 5 prompts are to read a book in the dark or at night. I didn't read any of these specifically at night. I just kind of read them whenever, because I forgot about this prompt. So, whatever. Thriller or horror could really be any of them. Amy Tintera is, so thriller or horror could be, Don't Let Him In. A new to you author could be Amy Tintera, because I have not read anything by Amy Tintera, but I had read Elisa Jewell. None of this is true. I had read that one at some point earlier. So Elisa Jewell is not a new author for me. So read a thriller or horror could be The Family Upstairs. New to author Amy Tintera. Read a book with pink on the cover. Could be Best Offer Wins. I held that up earlier on. It's upstairs at this point. So I held it up earlier. It does indeed have a red and pink cover. And none of these pages or books technically are under 250 pages, which is the last prompt. Best Offer Wins is the closest. I think that's 280 pages? It was within 20 or 30 pages of 250. It was 270 something, 260 something, maybe up to 280, but I don't think it was more than 280 pages. So that's the closest one of the 3 to 250 pages. And then I think I intended the fourth book, like the other Lisa Jewell. I intended, I think, that one to be the book that I read in the dark or at night, but I forgot to do that. So, so those are the prompts. So I at least fulfilled most of them. And technically, you're supposed to have one book per prompt, but the last one did double up because there just is not. Technically, there's a little bit of pink with the flower on this one, so maybe that could be pink on the cover. And then less than 250 pages could be best offer wins. This one's definitely more of a red. And then Don't Let Him In is definitely blue, so that wouldn't at all apply. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know if you participated in Summerween and what you read or what you would recommend from what you read during Summerween. And yeah, I hope you had a good time. And I will leave my Instagram linked down below. I will also leave my Etsy store with a few things in there, my Pango with some used books. I'll leave that down, as well as more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.